they've agreed on the causes of climate change. And one of the major drivers or causes of climate change they've agreed on is industrial farming or agriculture. And sustainable farming practices are one of the key drivers of climate change. But when you go to the same conference where it's agreed that unsustainable farming practices are a driver of agriculture, when you talk about the solutions, you will find that sustainable agriculture is not a priority amongst the solutions. And we, as Mizo Eco Care and SAB, are saying the hardest hit by kuchinja kwa nyengo, the hardest hit by climate change are actually small-scale farmers that directly interact with the soil and the environment. They are the ones that suffer the most from droughts or floods. So why shouldn't sustainable agriculture get as much funding as other solutions that the United Nations has prioritized? I'll give an example of carbon credits. They receive far much more funding than sustainable agriculture. And we're saying fund sustainable agriculture just as much as you are pumping funds into carbon credit mechanisms. Because when you fund sustainable agriculture, when you fund agroecology, you'll be helping the small-scale farmers hardest hit by the effects of climate change on the ground. So when we talk about climate change, we are talking about using agroecology to help the farmers build what we call climate resilience, a way the farmers can defend themselves against the effects of climate change. If there are droughts, the farmers can use farming methods that will help their soils store more water. What can they do? We are talking about them never leaving their soil exposed directly to the sunlight. So we encourage them to use mulching. These could be dead leaves. This could be grass. They could use what we call green cover crops. You know, those crops like pumpkins that spread out on the ground, or velvet beans, chiteze, which is able to spread on the floor of the field, and the sun cannot hit directly on the soil. When you have a spell of dryness, the way we have had the last, 5, 6 days, no rains, those that have their soils covered by a cover crop, the water will not be evaporating as quickly as those for whom the soil is bare. If the soil is bare, within 3, 4 days, you will notice the plants, the maize plants, the crop begins to wither. But if the soil is covered, if it's mulched, it will take literally 5 to 6 weeks before you see your crop being affected by the absence of rain. So agroecology helps us equip the farmers with skills and methods that will help them stand against the impacts of climate change. In times when there is flooding, when there are droughts, for example, they will use potholing. When you have flooding, we encourage them to use ridges or raised beds, which are able to be on top of the flooding water. Okay. So depending on the situation, there is something you can do. You adapt to the situation. If there is too much water, you use these methods. If there is too little water, you use these methods. That helps the farmer survive and be able to harvest something regardless of whether there is a drought or there is a flood. That's what we call, climate proofing the farmer, building climate resilience in them so that they can protect themselves against the effects of climate change. Then when we talk about seed varieties as well, we've got early maturing varieties, we've got late maturing varieties. When we talk about early maturity and late maturity in hybrid seeds, we need to ask ourselves, where does the seed used to make hybrids come from? It comes from our community. The late maturity variety comes from our community. Companies get it from there to go and make hybrid seeds that are late maturing. Early maturing, there are types of seeds that are early maturing in our community that those companies make. So we should not forget where the companies that make hybrid seed varieties get the parent seed from. It comes from our communities, and we can still find these late maturing varieties and early maturing varieties and use them. And because we've used them for thousands of years, when we get them, we can continue to use them year after year. That's not a privilege we have if we are getting hybrid seeds. If we have to get hybrid seed, we have to go back to the company that makes that seed, because we know the quantity you will harvest each year will be reducing with hybrid seeds. And it's made like that because for those seed companies, it's a profit. They want you to keep on going to them each year to pay them something before you get the seed. We are saying that's not necessary if we have our own indigenous seeds and local seeds or hail of seeds in our seed banks.
As we talk much about encouraging our small-scale farmers to get back to our traditional ways of farming, and now we're discussing issues of climate change, you know, it's something that has been that cannot just be changed there and then. You know, our only small-scale farmers have taken a lot of time to shift from those old traditional farming to reach where they are now. Do you think it is an easy thing that they will easily get back to that stage?
That's a good question, Mr. Peary. And I would answer that question by asking another question. These new practices we've adopted, have they made us better or worse? Have they made us as small scale farmers richer or poorer? From the time we gained independence in 1964, how many new varieties of maize have we adopted? Over 115. And each variety, when it comes, what is the promise? This will finally end hunger. This variety, every variety, njala ni kusila. Ipita variety. When the new variety comes, this is the variety that will finally end hunger. Then a new variety comes, then a new. So the changes we've made by leaving our old practices and adopting these new practices, have they made us better off or worse off? When we examine ourselves honestly, you will notice that the poverty rate has not gone down. Hunger has not gone down. In fact, the quantity of foods we find in our homes has reduced over the last 20, 30 years. There was a time as a kid when I'm going to visit my grandparents in Chadiza, I would be excited, you know, harvest time in Mwanali Range. If everything is there at the farm, you've got maize, you've got groundnuts, you've got pumpkins, you've got maungo, you've got nyemba, you would find everything at the farm. That's not the case today. If they harvest ipezekan nitunshaba, nichimanga, nama pumpkins, wasila. And in very small quantities that will not last the entire year for them. They'll still have to start asking for money to buy, they'll still ask for support, something they never used to do 20, 30 years ago. So if we're being honest with the situation on the ground, you will notice that there are certain things we used to do 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that we should go back to and adopt today. And they will help us a lot. And one of those things is maintaining a large variety or diversity of different seeds. That makes us rich. Seeds are not just something we use to make money. Farming for small scale farmers and agroecology is more than just a business, it's our culture. People today talk about generational wealth. Make sure you make enough money and wealth to pass on to the next generation and your grandchildren. Our ancestors were very clever. Their vision of generational wealth was what? Ngaka, soil, seeds. For 5,000 years, seeds have been passed on from generation to generation as a treasure to sustain us as human beings. Look at all our traditional ceremonies. We celebrate foods, different types of foods. All those foods are grown from seeds. When we want to pay homage to our ancestors, Movati Pika, Topati Pika, the beer and beverages we brew traditionally are all brewed from different types of seeds. Millet, sorghum. Where has the millet and sorghum gone? Maize is literally only 60, 70 years old. Before maize, what were we eating? Cassava, millet, sorghum. Where has the millet and sorghum gone? Why have we abandoned it? It's actually healthier for us than white maize. So why can't we go back to the millet and sorghum? I'm not saying we get rid of the maize, but let's have these three together and choose what we want to eat. Chimanga chikachepekela, when we've got very little maize, sorghum is there. Sorghum ikachepekela, millet ilipo. Let's have three different staple foods. We are better off and richer that way than forgetting about the millet and sorghum. Now we have to ask certain people for seed supply because a lot of people don't have most of these seeds we used to have. We can do better. We can still bring back all these different seeds. They are part of our culture. They are more than just a business. And we need to revive that part of our culture, the keeping of different seeds that give us different types of foods and increase the diversity of our diets when we eat together as a family.
Thank you so very much. For those of you that are following us on this program, you are welcome. If you want to participate, you can call us on 0978741616 or 0950169935. We are discussing issues concerning getting back to traditional ways of farming or conservation farming. The farming that will at least make sure our soils are not destroyed, our soils value most. So wherever you are, it is your time that you can also participate. Mr. Piri, you have talked a lot and you have explained a lot of issues behind, but we are now seeing we have come from a long way. Years have passed, meaning that even our local or traditional seeds, most of them cannot be found now. I don't know whether I've tried to do a research, say, like in Mambo, where can we find these local seeds, these traditional seeds? And if we don't have them, where do we find them so that we start implementing them? We start planting them so that maybe as people get this information little by little, by the time maybe that you have stipulated, say by this time we expect to have this, that could be achieved.
The challenge is there indeed, but we try and look at the positive side always. Reviving these seeds is still very possible.
Okay.
And that's why we have introduced a seed bank. So we are collecting different types of seeds within the Eastern Province, um, millet, sorghum, different varieties of maize from Southern Province, Gankata. We've also tried to get Kafamba. We've got Afric one from Vasoli. So we get these different varieties from across the country and share them here. The only challenge is, of course, we are a very small base,
Okay.
but with time, this is something that can be duplicated across communities, where each community has got different seed banks where people can go, get seeds, go and multiply in their fields. When they harvest, they take back three times what they got for others to also get, and they've got a lot to now continue growing and also sell if they want. So I think the vision is to have a diversity of seed banks scattered in Mambwe district, in the VAGs, village action groups, where people can freely go and access seed, multiply multiply it and take some back to the same seed bank so that others can also go and get. It's not something that can be done within a year or two, but trust me, if we all take this seriously, within a period of 5 to 6 years, you will see the difference. The number of people with the different types of seed will increase. And the beauty about the way we've always kept seed, we are never stingy with seeds. We always share seeds. You will always ask your neighbor, what type of seeds do you have? I've got this. Give me some of those, I'll give you some. That's how we've always kept seeds. That's how everyone has always had some seeds of a different type because we're able to grow the seeds, we're able to keep the seeds, but most importantly, we are able to share the seeds. If we replicate that model, within a period of 5 years, communities will have enough of the seeds we now find so difficult to get. I believe with all my heart that's very possible to do.
I almost wanted to ask a question about your projection, say by which year do you expect that you cover the whole Mangwe district? But since you have already mentioned about that, I wanted also to know what are the you mentioned about the seed bank.
Yes.
How secure is the storage of the seeds that you store there? What did you use to secure the seeds so that they are not destroyed?
Thank you so much. So the way we build the seed banks, there are different ways of building it. But what we currently have is like a container.
Okay.
But the way we've built the container, if you get inside, you'll be surprised how cool it actually is. So there are different methods we are using to try and create the cool environment. Then we use different types of containers as well.
Okay.
There is a type of clay we use for storage. Instead of using chemicals, we use what in agroecology and science they call diatomaceous earth. When you mix it, you crush it into a powder, mix it with the seeds.
Okay.
Then things like weevils, tuchatokutia chimanga,
Okay.
tukufa, stufika napafupi.
Okay.
So diatomaceous earth is one thing we use. We use ash to help us with the storage as well.
Okay.
So that's how we're trying to store it. But the container is just the beginning. The truly sustainable seed banks will have to be the traditional types that are literally made from reeds and soils. Because each community won't be able to buy a container,
Okay.
but they'll be able to make a seed bank from reeds and soils. And that's the model we would like to replicate. And there are when we talk about seeds, it's not just the actual seeds that we're talking about. If we talk about tubers, uh, sweet potatoes,
Yes, please.
cassava, all those are seeds. When we talk about stems of trees that we can grow, we cut off a piece and plant.
Yes, please.
That's a type of seed.
Okay.
So when we talk about seeds, it's not just those small little granules we're talking about, grains. It's tubers, it's stems. And one of the best ways to keep seeds, apart from building a seed bank, is by planting it. When people go into the field right now to plant the seed, it germinates, it grows. That's one of the best ways that nature has given us to actually keep seeds. Because if you keep the seed for too long without putting it into the soil so that it grows, it actually loses viability. So one of the ways we store seed by actually planting it. We actually have an opportunity to multiply it. If we had 50 kgs, by the time we harvest, we'll have 12 50 kgs and very fresh and viable because we'll have recently harvested it. It won't be 2, 3, 4 years because the longer you store the seed, the less viable it becomes.
All right, thank you. I also wanted to know because just today I was watching a post that was made by the BuyZ campaign.
Yes.
I saw a woman who was also explaining about the same storage of the seeds, where he mentioned about they are using the ashes that
Yes.
prevents the seed from being destroyed. But then in the explanation, BuyZ campaign director, I don't know or the director, Kazonga, someone, you mentioned, say they have this local made seed that is being produced either in Zambezi. Have you tried to do some investigation about that and say whether this is true or not? Because we are saying companies are becoming changing and they are all aiming at it, producing hybrid seed that will always give quick profits to the farmers. But this one was saying there is a company that is producing that local maize seed, and he is encouraging the farmers also to use the same seed so that at least it lessens the burden of maybe yearly buying of seeds, which are so exorbitant.
Indeed.
Yes, please.
I can't speak confidently about that. I've heard about the Zambezi seed, but I've never directly interacted with them.
Okay.
But what I'll say is, when we talk about plant breeding, it's not just something for scientists alone.
Yeah.
Plant breeding is something local communities have done for a very long time.
Okay.
So I don't think it's an impossibility for people to produce local seeds, multiply them into big numbers, and sell or share. I think that is something that's very possible. That gives me an opportunity to also talk about this, Mr. Piri.
Yes, please.
There is a bill currently in Zambia, a bill that's being processed called the Plant Breeders' Rights.
Okay.
If it's approved by the president, it will actually become law. But if you read the details of the Plant Breeders' Rights Bill, you will notice there are a number of rights that will be taken away from the small scale farmers. The issue of sharing I'm talking about, it might become illegal.
Okay.
There might be need to get permission before you share.
Okay.
And it is laws like that that we say violate the rights of small scale farmers. If we've been able to plant and share seeds for the last 2,000 years, why should things change now? Why should laws that favor only big companies come now? We feel the rights of farmers, their right to keep seed, to share seed, to grow seed, should be protected and maintained. And we are fighting hard for the president not to sign that bill. We do not want it to become law in Zambia.
All right, thank you. Due to the interest of time, I would ask Mr. Piri, maybe before you give your closing remarks on the program, do you have some other parts that your organization operates from apart from Mangwe and Mfuwe?
As of now, we are officially based, the head office is in Lusaka, Woodlands area, along Osotonia Road. Then our second base is here in Mfuwe, in Tom Village, Kakumbi Old Palace Road. So these are officially our two locations. But in terms of our advocacy work and promotion of agroecology, we are found across the country. Wherever people invite us to do training, conduct workshops, we do not hesitate to go there. We are literally, we work anywhere across the country where people invite us to be.
All the way from Lusaka to here, what factors draw you to this part, leaving all these other areas?
That's a nice question. Apart from being an Easterner, I'm a Chewa from Sadzu in Chadiza.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is my homeland. But specifically, why come to Mfuwe? In 2019, we did a baseline survey in Mfuwe, and it was fascinating. You know, the things we're discovering that time through that research. Before COVID-19, you remember COVID-19,
Yes,
which
please.
hit us hard.
Yes.
Yeah. Before COVID-19, Mambwe district was the either second or fastest growing district in Eastern Province. I don't know whether people know that. And one of the reasons why it was that fast in growing was because of the tourism activity.
Okay.
So it's Mambwe Mfuwe is literally like a melting point. You have that economic activity from tourism, you have that coexistence and sometimes fights between the people and the wildlife.
Okay.
It's a unique mixture of elements that I think will always attract someone interested in wildlife conservation and in agriculture. And for us, that unique interaction between agriculture activities in the GMA and wildlife and conservation activities in the national park, that conflict that's there really attracted us. And what we discovered from our baseline survey was that if people are not prospering in the game management area, they'll go into the national park to try and get some money from there. Charcoal burning, poaching, they'll try that. They'll degrade the national park. When they degrade the national park, the wildlife will have to go out of the national park into the GMA to try and look for food.
Okay.
Human-wildlife conflict escalates, it increases. So you create this cycle that is powered by poverty and hunger. And all we're trying to do now is say we can reduce the hunger, we can reduce the poverty. And through using the right agricultural practices, we can also help the GMAs regenerate. And if there's prosperity in this GMA, fewer people will get into the national parks. That means the national parks will be regenerated. If the national parks are regenerated, if South Luangwa National Park is regenerated, it means more water and more food for the wildlife in there. They don't have to come out of the national park to look for water and food. They'll have enough in the national park, and the human-wildlife conflict will also reduce. So it's the discovery of those elements and how they play against each other that really attracted us here. Apart from that, 2019, we wanted to be in Mfuwe, but we couldn't be in Mfuwe. The first time we were invited to conduct training in Mfuwe was at the invitation of the High Five Club, an NGO that's been in Mfuwe for more than 20 years. They've built community schools, they've sunk boreholes in Mnkhanya, a lot of them. They invited us to conduct some agroecology training in all the banks in Mnkhanya last year in June. So that was the very first time we actually came to work in Mfuwe. Then end of last year, entering this year, we started the current project we are talking about with the High Five Club and Rotary Club of Canterbury. We got a lot of support from Macaulay Cole Foundation, Adrian and Gitka. For a long time, we had no office. We were hosted by Adrian and Git for a period of about 5 to 6 months. So the community has been very kind to us. Us being located in Tom Village, we literally just met the headman from that village randomly at Msimbiti, and he said, you know what, if you've got nowhere to go, come to my village and talk to the whole village. Let's see how we can help you. That's how we had a meeting with the whole village, and they invited us to be based there.
Okay.
And that's how the rest, as they say, is history. That's how we found ourselves in Tom Village. So it's a series of events, us hoping and wishing to be here, us doing some research that justifies our being here, and also God's grace and guidance leading us to the right people that have supported us.
What are your closing remarks on this program?
I love food.
All right.
Apart from that,
Yes,
Zambia, based on the wish of the government and vision of the government, will not be able to become a green economy unless we replace mining with these two economic activities, agriculture and tourism. For as long as mining is number one in terms of making money for our country, we will not truly be rich, and we will never be a green economy. because it's very hard to make mining sustainable, and whatever we mine cannot be replaced. There'll come a day when it will be finished. If we're truly going to be a prosperous nation and a green economy, we have to make agriculture the leading economic activity in Zambia. And right after agriculture, we should make tourism the second leading economic activity, because those two activities can be done sustainably. It's very easy to make them green, to help local communities from those two activities. They can benefit directly. It's very hard for local communities to benefit directly from mining. So the vision of Zambia becoming great, a superpower economically in Africa, it will not be achieved unless we maximize the potential of agriculture and tourism. But we cannot maximize the potential of agriculture without sustainable agriculture, without agroecology. And we will not maximize the potential of tourism without ecotourism, finding a way to make tourism sustainable so that it takes care of the environment and takes care of local communities. That's how we'll develop our nation. And we believe this revolution of making agroecology, agriculture, and tourism number one and two economic activities in Zambia and in Southern Africa can start from Mfuwe. And that's why we want to work with the people of Mfuwe. Those are my last words, and an appeal to the people of Mfuwe, of Mnkhanya, of Kakumbi. Let's work together and make ourselves prosperous as communities and as a nation, and nothing will stop us from doing that.
It has been a pleasure to have you, Mr. P, in the studio. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Piri, and blessings and greetings to the people that have been listening to us.
Thank you. Dear listeners, there we are. We have come to the end of our program. I hope you have followed us clearly, but don't worry, we'll still be repeating this program so that at least you have an information over what is being discussed and the importance of it. You have been with me, Mr. Thank you for listening, and you another day. God bless you.